Joining us now is former FDA Commissioner Dr. Scott Gottlieb. He's a CNBC contributor and sits on the boards of Pfizer and Illumina. Dr. Gottlieb, great to see you as always. Thanks for joining us. Definitely want to get to all of that. But firstly, the spiking of cases in Europe, how severe is it? Is it much worse than any of the potential examples of pickup in cases in states in America? And is there anything we can learn from it to make sure it doesn't follow suit here?
Well, it's deeply concerning. It's very significant. France reported 16,000 cases. Today has more than 1,000 people in its intensive care units across the country. These are big surges. These are big epidemics and outbreaks that are underway in these countries. And, you know, it is a harbinger for potential risk as we head into our fall and winter that we're going to see upticks in cases here in the United States. That was always the risk that we enter as we enter the fall and the winter season when a coronavirus typically would like to spread, that we're going to see continued spread. I think one of the takeaways is that even though these European countries had pretty dense epidemics, they're nowhere near herd immunity. There's still a lot of people who are vulnerable to this infection, and in fact, we're seeing this spread.
Let's move on, Dr. Gottlieb. Sorry, I thought my mistake there. To the new regulations, the guidelines set out by the FDA. Is that something you support? Are you concerned they're a little too strict?
No, these guidelines that the FDA articulated, and it was just some press reports on the potential guidance that the FDA was intending to issue, so we don't have the full details. But what was reported by the Washington Post and other outlets seems to be very much in line with what expectations were. So I don't think that this is new toughened standards by the FDA, even though it was reported that way. I think it's consistent with the kind of advice that the agency has been giving all along, if you've been listening to what they've been saying in public forums. And my hunch is that the manufacturers have all gotten this advice as well. And so there's nothing really too new in this. Now, you know, if the White House does hold up the publication of this guidance, as has been intimated, it's not going to change the underlying guidance that the FDA gives to manufacturers. All it's going to do is hold up the public release of a document that would provide more transparency around that. But it's not going to change the scientific standards that the FDA has been articulating. They've been giving similar guidance for a very long time right now.
Dr. Gottlieb, you mentioned that the White House could keep that document from being published, but the president has also gone a step further and suggested that he could overrule the FDA in whatever it decides on the vaccine and actually implementing some of these guidelines. And I'm wondering what you think the likelihood is that the administration would do that the president specifically would do that, and what message that would send to the American public.
Well, look, I think it would send a terrible message to the public in terms of the perception of the integrity of this process. And I think that the FDA and the professional scientists at the FDA understand the urgency of the moment, want to advance these products quickly, but want to do it in a way that adheres to the gold standard for safety and effectiveness that inspires confidence in people and gives them the confidence to go out and get vaccinated. I don't know the process by which the White House would try to tip the scales here. There's really no expertise in the White House to try to influence the scientific standards that the agency would use to adjudicate a vaccine. I think the issue that's been reported that I've seen is whether or not the White House is going to let the agency go forward and issue that guidance. But again, the scientific guidance is the guidance that the agency has been giving to manufacturers, I assume, and I'm on the board of Pfizer, but I'm not intimately familiar with the kind of feedback that they've been getting. But I have to assume they've been giving this similar guidance to all the manufacturers at this point. I certainly hope the White House doesn't try to influence those scientific standards. Again, I can't even conceive of a scenario in which they would try to do that because it's so foreign to the way the agency has historically operated.
Yesterday, Dr. Gottlieb, Colorado Governor Polis joined the show, and he seemed to come across fairly relaxed about a pickup in cases that Colorado has seen in some college campuses, highlighting the fact that most of the people obviously there are quite young, quite healthy, and that therefore the risk of fatalities is low. Is that the right approach? Should we be where we can be relatively relaxed and not rush into more lockdowns?
Well, I certainly don't think we have to rush into more stay-at-home orders as a result of outbreaks. I think we could target our mitigation much more effectively because we have better testing in place and we know what the sources of spread are. But we shouldn't be relaxed because the spread right now is confined in younger populations on a premise that those individuals aren't vulnerable. First of all, they are vulnerable. They're just a lot less vulnerable than older individuals. But what we've seen time and time again is outbreaks in a younger cohort eventually seep into an older, more vulnerable population. You can't just confine a virus to certain segments of the population, no matter how much you try. And so if we have a lot of spread across the population, even if it's confined right now in lower risk groups, eventually it's going to get into higher risk groups, and we're going to see the amount of death and disease go up.
We certainly hope that that doesn't happen, but we know that you have been in front of all of this. Dr. Gottlieb, we appreciate your time today. Hope you have a great weekend.
Thanks a lot.